In an earlier presentation, we talked about a 2-minute drill to look at strategy. And now I want to look at it at a little bit deeper level. We will be going deeper still in upcoming lectures. So let's put some flesh on that 2-minute skeleton that I showed you in the prior lesson. And we're going to look at this in terms of 10 easy steps to strategy execution. Now, strategy execution is very important. If people actually do put together a strategy document, in all likelihood, they'll fail to execute it. And what happens is they'll take that document, which may have some good solid ideas in it, and stick it in a drawer and pull it back out again a year from now when they get ready to do the strategy for the following year. So let's take a look at it here with my 10 points. Core values precede and trump strategy. And I'd indicated core values were very valuable at our last presentation. And we will look at it in extreme detail in the upcoming presentation. But what these core values are the non-negotiable, never-changing beliefs of the business. And as CEOs, we are, when we start a company up or when we succeed to that top position in an existing company, we're establishing a culture that will endure for the life of the company. And if you are stepping into the shoes of an existing CEO, in all likelihood, there will be a set of core values that actually have already been defined for you. Very difficult to change, little need to change. They also reflect over time the values of the people, of all people who get hired into that company. So as we go through our corporate life, we're going to see that visions and strategies will change. I'd indicated to you in a previous presentation that we want to remain focused on our strategy, but there are things that come at us from outside of our purview, things that we didn't think about at the time that will force us to make adjustments in our vision and in our strategies. But those core values will remain unchanged even when that occurs. Number 2, the vision statements must be simple. And you remember I said that there are 4 words I wanted you to remember: focus, simplicity, clarity, and consistency. Number 2 is simplicity. Keep it simple, stupid. It's the KISS method. And Drucker would tell you that that vision statement should be simple enough to fit on a t-shirt. At one point, I think I mentioned 35 words or less, and that obviously is something that will fit on a t-shirt. More than likely, though, your vision statement will be simpler than even that 35 words. And why is that the case? Because this becomes a mantra, or one of the mantras that we're going to have in business, that tells us, reminds us what we have to do every day to make the company reach the vision that they have set forth in that company. Now see another slide that you saw in an earlier presentation, and that is to look at how we will determine our market. So our item number 3 is to determine precisely who we will sell, what they will sell, or what you will sell to the customer, and at what relative price will you sell. And I showed you this diagram before. It has 3 boxes on it. The yellow box indicates that the customers that you will be attempting to make as good, consistent buyers of your products. We have to determine which ones we want. Depending upon the type of strategy we select, there are some customers that by definition we don't want. They have different needs and different requirements when they make their purchasing, and it just doesn't fit our requirements. We want to stick with those that really work with us, but we've got to define who they are first. Now, for any customer that we have, if you look at the blue box, we have to decide what needs are we going to take care of. A lot of times when you buy a product, it requires delivery. It requires um, a user manual, possibly a training class, and some kind of a guarantee that services are available if they're required, and perhaps a warranty. Some combination of those are what every customer is going to need. Some will need absolutely nothing but their product. Finally, we have to look at what relative price customers are willing to pay. And we call this the WTP, willingness to pay, what customers believe is a fair price to them. And that in turn, and this is why this little chart is interesting as you dig into it. When you talk about what relative price the customer wants, it always is going to be couched in terms of what he needs. So if he needs more stuff with his product, you may have to insist on a higher price. And if he's unwilling to pay that price for the other stuff that is required to get the other stuff, you may have to consider him as a non-buying account. We will go into this in greater detail as we move forward through the semester. And of course, this is one of the little charts that you'll find in the Magretta book on understanding Michael Porter. Got a bag of gold up in the corner. This is one of the key fundamentals of any successful business. Our point number 4 is you must choose what you will do and what you do not do. And you do this by accepting trade-offs. And trade-offs means if I choose to make a very, as an example, a very high quality, high priced product, I'm making a trade-off that says I'm not really interested in, nor will the customer be interested in my product if they want to buy at a very low level and are willing to accept something without all of the fancy doodads that a quality superlative level product would offer. We have to be aware of that. We'll come back and talk about Southwest Airlines several times, but they made a conscious trade-off decision that they did not want to go after high-priced markets. They typically will start out going to second-tier markets. They did not want to have people who insisted on lots of services on the plane, and they were willing to accept the other class of customer that was willing to fly with a minimal number of amenities and be interested in going to the second-tier locations that they fly to. So they consciously made a decision not to service, not to choose to service a substantial part of the potential consumers. And this has been fundamental to their success. And we'll look at it in far more detail later in the semester. We have to define what we will do and what we will not do. And this is important. It's just important to know how you won't move into unusual directions or directions away from your basic strategy. It's as important to know what you won't do as it is to know what you will do. And I'm going to show you an example here. This is one that's in the Magretta book as well. And this is dealing with Edward Jones. Now, Edward Jones Investments has made a conscious decision to work out of small one-man offices with probably a secretary and support in smaller locations, maybe rural locations, but not in New York City, where obviously that's the investment capital of the world. But they've consciously made that decision, and they've been willing to walk away from a great many clients in order to serve the customers that they believe fit their profile. And in the process, they've become the 4th or 5th largest investment company in the United States, even though you may not even have heard of the company. But they put in there, they are so definite about knowing what they will not do, that in their website, if you noodle around a little bit there, you can find a statement about this. And it starts off, when we say no. And here I put up the little chart, the little arrow that says focus. And I guess I should focus on that too. When they say they won't do something, this is maintaining their focus on their primary customer set. But they put in their website, when we say no, and they say like, say this, that no one likes to hear the word no, but at Edward Jones, we're not afraid to say it, if it means that we are helping to protect your financial security. When might we say no to our clients? In the area of penny stocks, options and commodities, young unproven companies, timing the market, or online trading. I'm sure that if we were to bring this up to date, and it goes back a few years that they had this in their statement, we would also add cryptocurrencies. These are things that can be very, the ones that they won't work with can be very successful for the client, and they can be a total failure. There are people that have a great deal of fun playing the market and making day trades. Those are not customers for Edward Jones. And even though there might be a lot of commission to be made over those accounts that churn their portfolios on a frequent basis, what Edward Jones wants is the customer that will make the decision for growing their assets over a period of, say, 20 or 30 years, and then sticking with it. So they get paid, Edward Jones gets paid by providing their information service rather than for doing the transactions. They discourage people from doing any kind of short-term trading to allow them to build up a strong portfolio with retirement in mind. So there are very few companies, incidentally, that can be as religious in sticking with their basic principles. Edward Jones is a success because they have done that. Now, just to kind of highlight this a little bit more, point 5 here is that we have to plan to fire customers. Sometimes they don't fit. And that's what Edward Jones would do, is say to a client, if it didn't fit their portfolio, you can get better service from a different supplier than ourselves. So we can give you directions as to where you can find that person, but we don't want to have you on our, you don't have to be, but you don't have to do well. So overserved by what we provide. Again, they may prefer to go someplace else. We may want to help them go someplace else. If we got customers who are underserved, likewise, we may choose to send them elsewhere. Of course, over time, we may come up with products that'll take someone who's underserved and move them into our mainline product offering. But we have to be willing to walk away from customers that don't fit for us. Point number 6 is we need to be opportunity driven. Innovation means always doing something better and cheaper, but not necessarily more. And it's something that we continually have to do. And when we're doing our opportunity analysis, one of the groups that we're going to be looking for is that group of non-consumers, the people who don't even know about us, or if they've heard of our name, they don't know what we offer, or if they've heard what we offer, they don't understand how it would be beneficial to them. And this, as I've indicated previously in the and will continue as I go through the semester, I'm going to be emphasizing the fact that non-consumers represent a larger market than your regular customers or non-customers, people that have used you once but don't come back, or that prefer somebody else's to your product, although they know all of the features and benefits of your product. Item number 7. Oh, notice I do emphasize here again that this is non-consumers. It's not non-customers. Non-customers are great, but we're probably not going to get them as easily as educating someone who knows nothing about our product or has never been exposed to it before. Item number 7, remove the barnacles. On the left there is a bell that floats in the ocean with a weight under the bottom of it, and as the waves come in, the buoy there goes from one side to the other, and a bell inside of the top of it rings to warn people that this is shallow water. Well, as that buoy is sitting there in the ocean, over time it begins to collect barnacles, and these are things that make it less effective. You can see a man working on the keel of probably his sailboat, where he's doing the same thing that I'm suggesting, removing the barnacles from the bottom of the ship so he can get the full speed and flexibility out of the ship. And this is something that we have to do. And always we will find with products that we offer, you get feature creep. There'll be some large customer that will come along and say, look, we buy a lot of your product and we'd buy even more if you can put a left-handed fixture on the side of it, or if you can do it in a different color paint. And what we have to do is to avoid things that will be good for the customers, but not necessarily fit our profile as a supplier. Now, you might say, well, why be so picayune about the color that your product is painted? Well, it turns out that black paint dries slower than, or dries faster rather than other colors. And so on an automobile, the assembly line can move faster if you paint it black. And that was why Henry Ford always said, you could have any color of my Ford that you want as long as it's black, because he could get more throughput out of his factory by sticking with the black color only. If you know anything about autos, you know by about 1919, 1920, Ford began offering colors on their cars because the customer demand was so strong, they couldn't just walk away from all but black cars. The thing that we have to do is to keep skinning the product down. And we can ask the question, what does the customer value in a product? And you don't need to ask the question to the thin air. You can ask the customer, what do you value about our product? Is there anything in there that you don't need that we're charging you for? And the idea is to remove anything that doesn't have value to the customer, so that, and therefore also doesn't have value to us because we incur cost without getting any benefit. As you skinny that product down, you make yourselves more competitive, and you properly serve, not overserve or underserve the customers. And what this leads to, and this is kind of a startling statement, what you want to do is offer the least capable product the customer is willing to pay for. Customers shouldn't have to pay for things they don't need. They shouldn't have to pay for custom packing if they don't need it. They shouldn't have to have a cigarette lighter in the console when everybody else has taken their cigarette lighters out of the console of the automobile. Since customers are not willing to pay for that, you take it out, and you know that today your new cars, none of them have cigarette lighters. What they have is a place where you can put your hook up your iPhone or any product that needs to have some electricity to make it work. Number 8, you have to have an abandonment plan. This is something that Drucker insists on. And he says, put every product on trial for its life annually. And when we look at, when you go into marketing meetings and the salespeople are looking over all the products in your product line, you're going to find that there's some of those SKUs, the stock keeping unit, that don't really have any sales associated with them, and are not profitable by looking at the cost of producing them. And what you have to do is be in a position to eliminate those where there's no demand. Now, when you're looking at that, the tendency though is to say, well, we still got that product. Let's focus all of our marketing attention on the important products and keep funding the lesser products at the same level. We'll get around to it someday. But eliminating products from your product line when they're no longer needed is a fundamental part of good practice. We'll see this when we look at IKEA, because one of the things they do is they have a fixed number of stock keeping units that they carry on their carry in their inventory. And at the end of each year, they will add new products to the product line, but eliminate the losers, the ones that are not carrying their weight. And as a result, their catalog keeps about the same number of stock keeping units every year. And that's good, because that means you've got a lot less inventory costs. You don't have to carry items that never sell. They actually have a term for that. You probably have heard of FIFO and LIFO, but there's another one called LILO. Let's see. It's LIST. It's called, the acronym is LIST. Last in and still here. And what we want to do is avoid having those kind of products in our product line. Companies that are really good at having abandonment plans are constantly reworking their catalog and eliminating things that don't move. So here's an example: Procter & Gamble. You know them from all of the things that they do for the household. They tend to specialize in the bathroom or the toilet area, using that term in the broad sense that that's where you go in to dress each morning and put on your makeup and everything else that makes you very attractive as the day goes by. And also in the kitchen, where they provide a number of different things for cleaning and for making the household simpler. They want the entire household in those areas to be all dominated by Procter & Gamble. But that means that they have to free up money that they've got tied up in other products that don't fit that list. And here's Procter & Gamble had made a commitment about 5 or 6 years ago that they would eliminate 100 products from their product categories from their product lines. And here's the first one to go. It was Crisco. Now, Crisco dates back to the 1850s when the company was started. They were in the town of Cincinnati at that time, and there was a lot of hog butchering going on in that town. A lot of it providing the meat storage that the pioneers going over the Overland Trail needed to have to sustain them. And bacon was one of the key items that they carried with them because it would last a long time. And I'm sure it was totally rancid by the time they got to California. But the Procter & Gamble company collected the fat that was generated from this meat processing, and they made it into a vegetable, into a shortening for baking. But as time has gone on, of course, people have been less eager to eat animal fat and would prefer vegetable fats. So they changed the product, but still it was not fitting into the regular product line. Now, if I had been a manager there, I would have had a hard time abandoning Crisco as a product, because it is so traces its origins back to the origins of the company. So for sentimental value, I would have had a hard time eliminating it. But they sold off the Crisco line to another company. I don't know who the company was that bought it, but I do know who bought this one. Pringles was a category. This is a different kind of a product. It was a potato chip that was made by cooking the potatoes and then making out of the slurry, making a chip that could be structurally designed. And so, as you know, if you've eaten Pringles, which I'm sure most of you have, it's a good dippable type potato chip. The problems with it is that it didn't really fit into a place where Procter & Gamble could buy a lot of lineal feet in the grocery store. What they like to do is to have products and like all of the laundry products that they make, Cheer and Tide, and they make it in small containers, large containers, as tablets or as these little gel packs that you can use, or as liquid. And so they can carve out a certain number of lineal feet on the grocer's aisle, and that's really good. But if you have Pringles, what do you put next to them? There's nothing else in Procter & Gamble's product line other than making 3 or 4 flavors out of Pringles that would allow them to have any significant shelf space. Significant shelf space translates itself into large revenues. So they sold this, and it was sold to Kellogg. Charmin. Procter & Gamble developed the Charmin product line. It was really part of an effort to build the Pampers baby diaper. When my daughter was born, so many, many years ago, we lived in Cincinnati at that time, and we would buy the Pampers rejects in a very large box. They hadn't figured out how to make the Pampers as effectively as they do now. So they would end up with things that were very serviceable, but not serviceable to be sold at full price. As a corollary to that, they used the same equipment and the same mills that made the Pampers material to make the Charmin squeezably soft. But this doesn't really fit in with the overall long-term plans for Procter & Gamble. It's always profitable, especially the last 2 years, if you could make enough tissue because of COVID. But it always is profitable because the demand for this product is very predictable. You got to have people to use it. And if you got people, they pretty much got to use it. I think about 99% of the American population uses toilet paper. I don't know what the other 1% does. But because it was so predictable and it was only going to grow at the rate of population growth, they decided to bail out of it, and they've been selling off pieces, mill properties, retaining, of course, the Pampers, but getting rid of the regular toilet tissue and facial tissue that they make. Folgers Coffee. This is a company that Procter & Gamble had purchased back in the 1950s. It was a Kansas City-based company that had a very strong market presence, and they were able to build it into a national powerhouse. But because of, I think because of Starbucks, they decided to get out of that market. They found that as bright as they were at doing consumer marketing, and Procter & Gamble is absolutely the best at consumer marketing, they couldn't overcome the fact that Starbucks was not selling coffee. They were selling experience. And so since they couldn't really grow in that marketplace, and they were getting hammered by customers going to Starbucks instead, what they did was sell this off, and it was purchased by a company called Smuckers, J.M. Smuckers, up in Northeast Ohio, and they're running the product. It's a great product. It will make money. It's not going to have the growth that it had in the past because it's going to have to share the demand growth with Starbucks and with other people that are operating coffee houses. So this is a way that they approach their things, deliberately weeding out things that don't fit anymore, even when they're very profitable pieces of business. They sell them off so they can go into areas that they feel will be more profitable. Now, I mentioned that you want to have an abandoned plan for the stock keeping units in your product line, but I think it's appropriate also to abandon procedures, policies, even personnel, as your circumstances change, and you want to keep up to date. Now, when I say management personnel, it's a very difficult thing to let somebody go. And of course, we don't want, and it hurts people. It hurts them for two reasons. It cuts off their income, and it really is bruising to the ego. So when you go through the process of eliminating people who can no longer grow with the company, you have to do it in a way where you step on the shoes, but you don't mar the shine. And people need to know in advance if they're moving into a position where they will no longer be needed. It is not a heartless thing. It is a very heartfelt thing when those kinds of changes have to take place. Number 9, everything has got to fit together. As you're running your company and you have your strategy, you want to make sure all the activities for the company fit together. Here's 3 good companies that do this very well: Southwest Airlines, IKEA, and Starbucks. And we're going to deal with Southwest Airlines and IKEA. Each will have a lecture on that company alone. But I want to point out how fit takes place here. And I'll use an example with Southwest Airlines. Southwest Airlines doesn't cooperate with the system that all the other airlines work with, where you can buy tickets through a travel agency or through someone like Orbitz or Travelocity or Kayak or Trivago or any of the others that are out there that will provide, could sell airline tickets. Southwest has made a choice and what they do and what they won't do, that one of their choices is we will not pay travel agents or companies like Travelocity for selling our tickets. And therefore, we're not going to make you can always go out to the Southwest site and find out schedules, open seating, if there is seats on the plane, and pricing. But we'll not do it through the cooperative system that all the other airlines have. Well, that's good, because typically you'll have $8 to $10 involved in that transaction if you use a third party to write the tickets. So by taking that out of the equation, Southwest has created value that they can use for their customers. But this fits with another issue that they have. They don't do interline transfers. If you get on a flight from Delta and you go halfway across the country and get to a destination where you have to change the planes with, say, American, Delta will automatically take your baggage and put it on the American flight. And they have they'll charge a fee to American for doing that. So in that way, everyone gets compensated when your bags are on the belly of the plane and are moved from one airline to another. Well, Southwest has also taken the position that they don't want to be part of that interline transfer. Now, they have a couple of advantages here. They've chosen to fly in second-tier cities, and these are usually get on the plane at your origin point, get off at the destination of that flight, and you're there at where you wanted to get to. It isn't very often that they have anything set up where you'd have to go on not only different planes, but different carriers to get to your ultimate destination. Now, Southwest does have flights where they will make 2 or 3 stops, but you get to stay on the plane the whole way. So that brings us back to the issue of the interline transfers. They don't need them as much because the people stay on the same Southwest plane pretty much all the way from origin point to whatever the destination is. So Southwest saves twice. And what they do is they turn around and they give you something in exchange. They give you a lower ticket price, and they tell you, in order for us to do this, what you have to do It's pick up and carry your luggage, and you can put it on the plane. We'll let you do it for free. Otherwise, if they were in the interline transfer system, Southwest would have to be paying something every time a bag was transferred to their airplane. They would be giving up the ticket revenue to the third-party ticket supplier, and they would not have any benefit that they could pass on to the customer. But here they pass it on to the customer, and the customer gets the ultimate benefit of being able to carry 2 bags on. If you look at this by contrast, if you were to go with United or American, or let's see, the other one would be Delta, those big 3, if you happen to go on their planes, you'd be paying $25 to $50 per bag to store it. Now, this is true even for JetBlue. I found out this spring that JetBlue does charge extra for bags if you take the cheap seats. And I always like cheap seats. So I ended up having to pay for a bag that when I was on the JetBlue flight. But this is an area now where I'm showing that there is fit in the way that Southwest has chosen to present their offering. Number 10, don't wander. Stick to the plan. Bosses are the worst. They get in a golf match on Friday afternoon with their best customer, and at the end of the golf match, the customer has whispered in their ear, "I've got a great opportunity for you," but it turns out when the opportunity is described, it doesn't fit the strategy plan that same president who's listing put together to run the company. And they end up, those executives end up trying to appease the customer, and sometimes do it at the expense of the company, because it takes away from their focus on the plan. It takes away from what everyone has been instructed to do in order to serve this one customer. So you got to be very careful when you pick up that shiny penny, that it's not going to be something that's going to destroy your capability. Now, a couple other things that we want to look at just to finish this off. There's some terms that we use, and I'll be using them interchangeably. Core values and basic beliefs really are the same thing. That both of those terms encompass the same thing. So if I use them interchangeably, or if you see them interchangeably, you can understand that they are really the same thing. These are both either core values or basic beliefs, or since they're the same, the core values and basic beliefs drive culture. We state on writing what it is we believe and how we will act, and then we live it out. And the extent to which we live it out will determine how strong those core values are and how strong the culture of the company is. And if you ever go out to get hired on someplace, you want to take the time to either get a plant tour or to get to be with somebody who works there and see how they conduct themselves in their day-to-day activity. And this will really tell you, do the people really believe in what they say? Do they live it out? If they do, it's a good, strong culture. 2 other words that we will use that people will try and get you to use interchangeably are mission and vision. And there are people who say that what I will tell you is, in our company here, we're going to use the word mission to mean what you're currently doing. And vision to listeners. So as we go through time, the vision will actually become the mission. As we get closer and closer to what the customer expects, it'll more and more reflect what we do. Some people will reverse those and say the vision is where you currently are and the mission is where you want to go. And that's fine, they can do that. But for our purposes, we'll always use it in this order. The mission is what we're currently doing. The vision is what we want to be doing in order to meet the needs of our customers. By the same token, people will confuse goals and objectives. A goal is something that's long-term. It could be achieved ultimately, but not in the short term. An objective is something that will add to or help solve the problem of the goal. It's achievable, and it can be done, accomplished within a period of, say, 6 months to 12 months. People sometimes turn those around and say the objective is the long-term part and the goals are the short-term part. We're going to use it always in this context. Goal is something that is achievable, but it may take as long as a generation to accomplish. And an objective is something that will help arrive at the goal, that will be a building block on the way to achieving a goal. But that objective can be completed and successfully completed within 6 months to a year. Now, one final takeaway, and this is a reflection of my greatest weakness as a manager. And these are as a result of the characteristics of that objective. An objective is time binding. As I said, it normally will run 6 to 12 months, and you measure your success at doing it at the end of that time bound continuum that you put on the objective. It is quantifiable. We have a way of measuring what it is, and it has a person responsible, uniquely responsible for achieving that objective. This is very important. I got the star with it. It's very important to me because this is something where I frequently would fail. I would not have a single person solely and uniquely responsible for achieving the objective. I oftentimes divided that up or allowed people to get off the hook. But we want to make sure that there is a person for every objective. There is a person uniquely responsible for it and accountable for achieving it. So this covers this section of our class, and we will proceed onward.